Sunday, 16th, Day of the African Child. That's a conversation we're going to have next. And we're joined by Justus Makhulo, who is the Program Officer at FAWE. Justus, good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. Nice being here.
Karibu sana.
Nashukuru sana.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Sure, I'm here. I'm feeling the heat already.
Ndio umeketi.
Kiti kimoto.
Yeah?
Shukran.
Now, listen to Mr. Siti Muga here. He is going to give you the day's proverb. This week, the proverbs are from the Republic of Zambia. Today's proverb, he is going to give you, and listen to it carefully and give us your interpretation of it. Ready?
All right.
Aya.
So, don't start a fight just because your companion is strong.
Don't start a fight
Just
because your companion
is strong.
Wow. From the Republic of Zambia.
Yes.
A good one. In a daily life situation, we are faced with different circumstances. Could it be a hardship? Could it be a fun moment? And I think my pick and interpretation is that I should always keep my guard before engaging into something. Whether I'm fighting for my brother, fighting for myself, fighting for my sister, I need to keep my guard, such that I'm at a level where I'm able to defend myself properly.
You know, one of the joys we have in asking our guests to interpret a proverb, guests will come up with interpretations you would never have thought of. And you say, oh yeah,
Makes sense.
makes a lot of sense, yes.
Sure.
So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for that quiz.
Asante.
Asante.
Justus, what is FAWE?
FAWE is a Forum for African Women Educationalists, specifically Kenya chapter. Yes.
Forum for African Women
Educationalists.
What is educationalist? Who's that?
Educationalist, this is an association. This is a group of very strong women way back in 1990, in the 90s. These are women ministers who came together. They were in a foreign country for a conference, an educational conference, Africa, and they thought of coming up with an organization. That is why they derived the name the Educationalists. They are professionals in the education sector.
Okay.
Yes.
So what do they do?
Basically, the Forum for African Women Educationalists, we have the Kenya chapter, and by extension, the regional secretariat or the African office. The focus of FAWE is to promote quality education among girls and boys across Africa. When I'm talking about Africa, I'm talking about 33 countries in Africa. Yes, and I talked about the chapters. We have 34 chapters. Mainly education for the girls and boys, quality education.
So it's for girls and boys.
Programmatically, 70 to 80% girls, and then 20 or 30 to 20% boys. We can't move the agenda of education, we can't move the agenda of development without inclusion. Of course, FAWE is a feminist organization, and we focus also now empowering the boy child. Yes, I know there's a debate around boy child.
Of course.
Exactly.
I can see the point when these women leaders were actually meeting and what they were dealing with. They were looking at their own experience, how they ended up, how they went through education.
Yes.
Looking back and seeing how many girl classmates they had.
Yes.
How many girl classmates and contemporaries who dropped out of school for whatever reason.
Yes.
Others were married off, others, just for many reasons.
Sure.
And that they ended up being maybe the few who got to where they got to.
True.
And I can see them coming together and saying, you know what, we've got to promote so that more girls start and finish school.
Sure.
I'm sure that situation has changed. Now we have many more girls who start and finish school. So is the vision still the same? Has it changed? Or are we still focusing on 70 to 80% of quality education for the girl child?
As we rightly, thank you so much. As we rightly point out, quite a lot of strides have been made. Progress has been made, but the vision still remains. Why is it remaining? It is remaining because we are looking at the vulnerabilities of girls across Africa and back home in Kenya. the issues of teen pregnancy. Look at the Kenya Demographic Health Survey report of 2022. Major on the agenda, teen pregnancy is still on the rise. It's still at that high level that we need to really address. Look at issues of FGM. A number of policies, a number of initiatives have been put forth. But FGM is still being practiced illegally. Of course, that's an illegal act. Look at issues of child marriage. It's still an issue affecting girls. Look at the issue of gender-based violence by extension. If you fight a couples fight, those who are greatly affected are the children, specifically girls and boys. Girls, they're affected. So the vision, as you rightly point out, it's still the same, and we are still focusing, but we are hopeful that we'll be able to make that difference. But again, we still appreciate the strides that have been made so far. Yes.
Many of those issues that you've talked about are cultural.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Early marriage, FGM, they're very cultural. So how do you approach this?
Cultural issues, they need a multi-sectoral approach. For FAWE Kenya, how we approach it, of course, now through our program called Imarisha Msichana, which is funded by Mastercard Foundation. We are working in 20 counties, and our focus is to give them the voice. Our key focus, to give the girls the voice to speak out. We have a model called Tuseme. Tuseme is a Swahili word, specifically, meaning let's speak out. Now, we work in schools. We work across the 20 counties. We work with 160 primary and secondary schools. And in those schools, across board, we have established Tuseme clubs. Tuseme clubs is basically giving the girls the platform to speak out, both the girls and boys, to speak out now those cultural issues. Of course, they stem from a culture perspective. So they are able to speak. We have empowered them that they are able to speak, they are able to articulate, they are able to share. And also now from the school, we engage with the community, where we have what we call community engagement. In community engagement, we work with the different stakeholders, the parents, the caregivers, the national government units, the law enforcement agencies, the other stakeholders, in terms of having a conversation around those cultural issues and how best we address them.
I have to ask this question. When you say speak out,
yes,
are we presupposing that they ordinarily cannot speak out and so need to be empowered? One, and to speak out about what specifically? You say culture is broad.
Yes.
What is this thing that they have not been able to speak about clearly or loudly enough, so that now it is when that they're being empowered to speak out? What is it?
Thank you so much. We empower, of course, we are from a patriarchal society, where the man's voice or the boy's voice, from an early age, we are socialized. The girls and boys the girls have been socialized not to speak, to keep silent. Their place is the kitchen. Their place is that level. So here we are talking about speak out. We are giving and also amplifying the girl's voice on the issues of teen pregnancy, issues of teen marriage or teenage marriage, issues of gender-based violence. We are giving an opportunity for the girls and also by extension the boys to articulate those issues from their surrounding, from their community, from their families. Now at school level, we'll bring them to a level where they are able to articulate, to be able to speak freely. Speaking out is not at FAWE Kenya. We at FAWE, we don't have an injection, but this is a mentorship program where they are trained on issues of being assertive, being able to express themselves, being able to articulate those issues. Because many times these are those when girls were socialized that they cannot speak out, they cannot express themselves. They are kind of suppressed.
You know, I hear what you're saying, and I've always found that particular idea or that concept interesting in this sense.
Yes.
When people talk of traditions, they assume as though it's one blanket, or culture is one blanket norm and way in which Africans went about their business. And they seem to exclude the very natural process of evolution, where even culture, given the dynamism within it, changes over time. Because if you actually look at the patriarchal society you speak of,
Yes.
and alongside it you say women were disempowered and could not speak, it's not entirely true. Speaking didn't mean, you see, when you say speaking, now we are speaking, okay?
Yes.
But I think there's a larger conversation of communication. Women had roles, their roles in society, and issues that mattered, they could articulate them. The manner in which they did it was not necessarily speaking out in public or saying it, but there are ways in which, given, again, that same system, I'll give you an example. If you look at the role that elderly women had in many communities, many of these elderly women were even more powerful than many of the men. They didn't speak out loudly. You didn't see them taking the role, role of men, but their place and their roles were entrenched, and it was clear. So if one understood the process through which you communicated something, because there was a process. You have an issue, this one you take to such and such an individual, this one you go through this channel, meaning there was even a structure within it. Now, what I believe you're speaking of is the breakdown of that particular structure over time, when we believe we became modern, and then we started inculcating other cultures that were not originally ours. And so in this process, some of those structures got lost. So now there's a need to reimagine and recreate a process by which communication can actually be effective. I believe that is what you at FAWE are doing.
Yes, by extension, by large extension, that is the model, and that is the approach. And rightly, as you point out, what we are saying as FAWE in this particular arrangement is to break those barriers, the barriers that were not allowing the girls and those young women to express themselves. Of course, it has a lot to do with the communication. Of course, structurally, by then, that is what used to happen. But again, now with the culture and the pros and the lifestyle is evolving. And we are in a fast moving world where we are looking at girls and young women taking an active role, taking a proactive role in their development. We're talking about accessing education for their development. So that particular process, we think and we believe as FAWE that we need to accelerate. But of course, again, breaking those barriers of communication. Yes. Yeah.
You know, over time, things change.
Yes.
The founders of FAWE, again, I want to go back into, at the moment of founding FAWE, there were challenges and there were the duty bearers then. And then now we have the same challenges today. So we have today, you have, for example, to Seme, you're letting girls now feel empowered to speak out, but we still have these challenges in the community, in the society.
Yeah.
These challenges, these things that we're talking about, these young children are the children of parents who were taught by these women who founded FAWE.
Yes.
Does it mean that the message did not get through? Because if we talk about early marriages, today's mother allowing her child to get married off early, it's not for lack of exposure or lack of organizations that would have reached her. Today's mother and father allowing their child to go for FGM is not for lack of knowledge that this is now illegal, that there are challenges here. It's not for lack of actually having heard a voice that says FGM is bad. So why do we still have it?
We still have these problems, as we pointed out previously in this debate, is that we have made some strides. We have made some achievement, but a lot needs to be done. What is making this particular process to be a little bit difficult or requiring more intervention, again, is about, of course, the setting or the environmental setting. I'm not talking about the rains and winds and whatever. It's about the cultural setting. Yeah. For FAWE, we are working with the rural communities, informal settlement, where the perception and the attitudes of the parents and the caregivers has not yet changed fully. Yes, there's a lot of information around these issues we're talking about, child marriage, FGM, teen pregnancy, but the attitude and the perception has not yet changed. And it is a gradual process that FAWE Kenya and, of course, other stakeholders, we are still accelerating. I'm deliberately using the word accelerating because we have to move with a little bit higher level of speed for us to be able to achieve what we have to achieve or make that particular significant change. Again, of course, there are policies. For example, in school, in the education sector, we have the re-entry policy. We have the Anti-FGM Act. But that information has not trickled down to the grassroots, to the common mwananchi, to the common mama, to the common old man, who is supposed to be the consumer and the key actor in that particular process. So a lot needs to be done around the community engagement and also involving the male champions. Of course, I talked about the issues of patriarchy. We have to bring on board men. We have to bring on board the boy child to be an active participator in this particular process. So those are some of the issues that are still making this particular process not yet done until it is done.
Okay.
Yes.
Justus,
Thank you.
Statistics show that when it comes to teenage pregnancies, yes, we have those counties that you think are still traditionalist, still practicing FGM, and then have early marriages happening. Okay? But then there's some counties that stand out and you ask yourself, what's happening? Nairobi has highest statistics of teen pregnancies. Then you have western counties like Bungoma, like Kakamega. You have counties like Machakos. Then you have coastal counties. Why are we seeing such incidences of teenage pregnancies? Why? It is not because of early marriage, because these girls who are getting pregnant are not getting married off. They're just getting pregnant. So what is it? What is the cause here? And is FAWE doing a program around this to address making sure that these children are not getting pregnant and that they stay in school?
Thank you. One of the contributing factor of that scenario, and indeed true statistics, they say statistics do speak. And those are not merely numbers. They represent human beings, people, and specifically the young girls who are supposed to be the future generation, future mothers, future professionals, and future good people. One is the fact that parents and caregivers have relegated their responsibility. They are not taking an active role in modeling, in parenting. Of course, somebody will argue, when you have a child, you don't get a manual, you don't have a manual on how to parent. And of course, we'll argue around the cultural setting. But most importantly, parents and caregivers have relegated that particular responsibility. So children are not being taken care of as required. For example, there's a lot of debate in terms of looking for the livelihood, making the ends meet. Parents and the caregivers are running up and down to make sure they put food on the table. So parental responsibility is an issue. The children have been left literally on their own.
Where are these people? Nairobi, I can see, because of the urban nature of Nairobi, that the parents would be out for most of the day trying to get something, fending for the children. In these rural counties, where are the parents going?
Parents are getting to, of course, leaving their children with the care of an adult. They are leaving them with the care of a grandmother. They are leaving the care of their children to the uncles who are not owning that particular responsibility.
And going where?
Going to different parts of this country to make a living. Yes, sir.
So they've come to the urban areas.
Urban areas, or those who are also going to not necessarily urban areas, but to different parts of this country to look for a means of livelihood. So there's the parental gap.
Are we saying that our rural areas can no longer provide sustainable employment or engagement for people who live there, so that they must leave in order to go somewhere else?
Yes. They can't sustain. The rural to urban migration is still an issue for means of livelihood. We can do research around it.
No, I'm not doubting you.
Yeah.
I'm merely thinking that devolution has brought urbanization closer to most people, most citizens. So are we saying that because of this urbanization, people still feel that if they go to whatever headquarters of whichever county, they are more likely to actually get a means of sustaining themselves.
Yes, that's the case. That's the case.
It's odd because maybe it's the time and the place and an era, but this subsistence farming that people in the rural areas have been involved in is what enabled them to even send their children to school at some point.
Yes.
It's what enabled them to even eat and be able to sustain themselves. So we are saying essentially that that subsistence farming, which is what most people do in the rural areas, can no longer do this.
Yes, because there were, again, of course, the issue of population. Those farmlands, the farmlands that kind of those days used to sustain, they have been subdivided to accommodate the settlement of the increased population. So that is one of the key factor, and is an area that we need to explore deeply. So that, and then again, rightly, as you point out, the issue of devolution. Of course, we do appreciate the importance and the impact of devolution, but again, a lot has not been done in terms of investing in the various counties or the various areas to accommodate and institutionalize the issue of livelihood support. So that again has an impact in terms of the rural to urban migration. Yeah, and of course the other thing is about why this particular the increase of teen pregnancies, the dropping out of school, is about the policies. I talked about, for example, the re-entry policy is in place. The anti-FGM Act is already there. But of course, the information has not trickled down for people to be able now to fully understand and embrace. And of course, look at now the effective implementation. Of course, the policies are there. But now the challenge the issue that needs to be put into focus is about the effective implementation of those policies such that they are able to yield the intended results. The re-entry, of course, as far away. Of course, I talked about engaging with the different stakeholders. We've been able to engage with the community, engage with the different players to be able, especially the school heads and also the board of management, in terms of disseminating that particular policy, and also maybe looking at how best they support, and also they support the re-entry of teenage mothers back to school, which has substantially yielded some good results. But a lot again needs to be done, because if statistically, if you look at, for example, in Nairobi, the year 2023, there's reported cases of over 100,000 teen mothers who are out here. And out of that, a small percentage that were able to re-enter back to school. So that means we need to really look at how best deliberately have interventions to re-enter the teen mothers back to school, with the support from the Ministry of Education, from the support of other like-minded organizations like FAWE and other civil society organizations.
I'm not sure I actually get the connection. So, for example, let's take the county of Bungoma.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Very high numbers of teen pregnancies.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
If we just start from what we thought was the cause, that maybe, the parent, the mother figure, the father has moved out and left the children, and the children are being taken care of by a relative who is not very strict. So he's not really taking care of watching whether these children are going to school or not.
Yes.
So in that, delinquence forms in, and then these teenagers become pregnant. Okay? If that is the cause, it shows that there's a breakdown. That the guardian has absolutely no control, or does not really take their responsibility seriously of taking care of this teenager to make sure that the teenager is going to school. So upon getting pregnant and giving birth, it's the same guardian who's expected now to take care of the teenage mother's child, so the teen mother can go back to school. It will not happen.
Quite an interesting scenario.
Yeah.
And that's why we are saying, as FAWE, we are saying we are engaging with the caregiver or the parents of the teen mothers. We have programs in terms of, we have what we call community forums and sensitization events that we bring on board the caregivers or the parents of these particular teen mothers to a conversation where we are saying, yes, this particular girl or this is a teen mother she has, so to speak, she has made a mistake. She has erred. She has had a child. But there's a second chance as provided for by the Minister of Education through the re-entry policy that this girl needs to go back to school. Why go back to school? Because there's a future. They say education is the key. As for Kenya, we believe education is a tool to be able to fight, to conquer poverty, conquer the social issues. From there, of course, we engage with the schools. I talked about 160 schools hosting our Tuseme clubs. The schools, with the understanding of the re-entry policy, they create an enabling environment to accommodate these particular girls. But again, we're also taking cognizance of the fact that there is the livelihood aspect. This is the same caregiver, the parent, who needs to meet the needs of the grandchild and vis-a-vis the daughter. Now, for FAWE Kenya, we have what we call a livelihood program, where we provide the initial support for the teen mothers in terms of livelihood activities that the caregivers and the parents are engaged in to allow this particular teen mother go back to school.
Yeah.
So that is the kind of intervention we do as an organization. But again, as we also look at the other opportunities that will be there. For example, not all the teen mothers that we support are in second school. We have what we call TVET. They can still go learn a skill, such that now they can be able to build a career. They can also be able to build a profession out of that particular skill. So it's a whole conversation and a creative way of looking at it. Not necessarily the issue of like, okay, you have to be in school. Caregiver take this, or the parent take this particular responsibility. We have to engage, such that there's always the appreciation that yes, this particular teen mother needs an opportunity to get back to school. So it's a whole conversation.
You know, the work that FAWE is doing is remarkable.
Thank you.
What I haven't heard you talk about, if indeed you have that aspect in your intervention, the preventative aspect, because the girls don't get pregnant on their own. And since you say very correctly and well that you work with both young men and young women, both boys and girls, what are the processes or the interventions that you have to try and ensure that these young people are educated, these young people, whatever process you need to understand so that these pregnancies do not occur?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I mentioned about Tuseme clubs.
Yes.
Tuseme clubs speak out. It is an empowerment model. Now, in Tuseme, we provide what we call the mentorship sessions, where we're able to engage with the different club members, both girls and boys, in terms of now having a talk and conversation in terms of understanding their human sexuality, or providing the age-appropriate information so that they're able to understand their developmental stages, the growth, the changes that do occur, such that they're able to understand themselves and also now focus on their education. So through Tuseme, we do the mentorship and the human sexuality activities. Additionally, we also have what we call the external facilitators or resource persons who come on board away from or in addition to the guiding and counseling interventions at school level. That is a mainstream department. So we have resource persons who also come on board to be able to talk to them, also provide the required information. For example, you can get to a community or get to a school community that maybe they need an aspect on issues of drug and substance abuse, issues of relationship. So we bring on board different resource people to be able to talk to them in terms of building their capacity to understand these issues from that particular level, such that they appreciate what also they need to do. Number 3, we work closely we are creating what we call the male champions. Male champions, right? We work with the mixed schools. So male champions at primary level, we have the boys involved. At high school level, we also have boys included. That is now the school setting. But at the community level, I talked about now working with the different stakeholders. Majority, 90% men. For example, in one of our interventions, we do what we call boys and young men forums. These are 3 days event where we bring on board different categories of male stakeholders, ranging from the government, a community where we have the caregivers and the parents. We have the border borders. You must have had this discussion that border borders do contribute a lot to issues of teen pregnancy, child marriage. So we bring on board the border borders, the religious leaders and the religious organizations on board. We have the teachers. We have the Minister of Education officials. We have the national government administration officers. We have the opinion leaders. Maybe what we have not done, maybe including the politicians, male politicians, into this particular conversation, so that we are able to discuss these issues, human sexuality, how to support girls and boys' education, so that we have a candid discussion, or we have had candid discussion around with them, such that they become part and parcel of this conversation. Such that, again, they don't look at it, it's not perceived to be a FAWE affair. Yes, the initiative is from FAWE with the support from donors, but again, we are putting that conversation at the bare base in terms of other stakeholders are be able to appreciate. And one of the lessons we have learned is that many times the focus of male team members will say, oh, we thought this is a women affair.
Yeah.
So kumbe tuko na mahali tunaweza ingilia na tukafanya mchango. So, and that has has come out of the border teams that we have worked with, such that we experience change of perception and that participation. Yeah.
In the previous hour, we had a conversation with a gentleman called Mahmoud Noor. He's a founder of Swahili Port Hub in Mombasa.
I've heard about it.
And he was telling us about how they have been mentoring young men and women at Swahili Port Hub. But also one of the things that he observed is that the boy child in the coast is almost like left alone. So if you look at just enrollment in the coast, girls are enrolled and staying in school, boys are dropping out of school. And then they end up into drugs, they end up into crime, they end up just without hope, as he put it.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything to
yes.
actually look at the plight of the boy child in some of these communities?
Yeah, thank you. We are doing something. Yeah, the answer is yes. We are doing something as FAWE Kenya in terms of including boy child and young men into this particular conversation. How we are involving them? One is to make it. We have made it deliberate among our Tuseme clubs across board, where we have mixed schools, boys and girls. We deliberately target that at least 30% or 40% of the Tuseme the club members are boys. We are bringing on board the boys also to understand the plight of the girls. We are including boys and young men through the community conversation in terms of being champions and advocates of girls' education. But again, I know the question is inclined towards what is it that we have for the boys as a specific constituent of our programming. What I've mentioned is that's what the direction we are taking, but also we are taking into consideration that the plights and challenges of boys need to be looked at more critically. And lately in our activities, we have the other day we marked the international on 28th, the International Menstrual Hygiene Day, where we are providing sanitary towels for the girls. As we do that, with their support from other partners, we are talking about providing those basic necessities like the innerwears, what we call the famous boxers, also to the boys, such that there is that level of inclusion. But over and above, as FAWE Kenya, we are looking at how to do programming deliberately targeting the boys or the boy child. Yeah.
Who are the partners you work with? Because everything you've described is not easy, neither is it simple. And they are institutions or organizations that have been doing some of the things that you say you are doing. So in the various counties where you work, which are these organizations that you partner with? And as a strategy and as a plan, what do you see as the desired end to all these projects and processes that you have?
Okay, thank you. Two in one. One, in terms of the partners, we work directly with of course, government that 2 levels of government, county government and national government across the 20 counties. We work very closely because our programs around education, the Ministry of Education across the 20 counties. The Ministry of Education, very closely the county directors of education, for purposes of supporting and also supporting the policies and enhancing the technical support to our programs. We work with the Teacher Service Commission. Of course, the Minister of Education is in charge of the school infrastructure. The Teacher Service Commission, in terms of engaging with the teachers and having the establishment of Tuseme clubs within those schools, and having the patrons or the teachers from those schools being patrons to patronize the Tuseme clubs. We work closely with the Department of Gender issues. That is the department we're working with. We also work very closely with in Nairobi County, now this is specifically Nairobi County, with the Department, Minister of Health, Minister of Education. There's a unit called the School Health Program. So in Nairobi County, we are working with that particular unit, basically to support some of intervention, because with the school health program, they have 8 thematic areas which are in line with our programs and activities. Across the counties, we work with other civil society organizations. For example, like as we are speaking today, for Nairobi County, we are marking the Day of the African Child. And we have different stakeholders being part of puzzle of this initiative. We have,
so there's a celebration today?
Yes, there's a celebration.
Okay.
Yeah, for Nairobi. So we have different stakeholder partners. We have the World Vision, Toto. We have Slum Child also being on board, and of course the other partners across the specific counties that I'm not really mentioned, each and everyone individually. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. At the national level, there is the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That has the Council for Children. What's the council called?
National Council of Children's Services.
Yeah. So the National Council of Children's Services is like the overall body looking at all these things. Is there a coordinating framework or coordination framework that says everybody who is working and has programs that are targeting or geared towards children will have a dashboard where we can all see, this is what FAWE is doing, this is what World Vision is doing, this is what Leam Toto is doing, this is what everybody else is doing, so that you then harmonize your efforts? Is there anything like that?
Okay. Yes, I'm aware. There's that. Then we have the National Council for Children's Services at the national level. But I think at my position, or at the position of FAWE Kenya, I would say we are partners. We work with them. And maybe I would not, because it is a government arm. I don't have the authority maybe to speak on their behalf. But as far as our mandate is concerned, we link up with the National Council of Children's Services in terms of our programming.
Do you think
yes,
it would be important to have a one coordinating framework? So let's say you're going to Kilifi County or whatever, whichever county.
Yes.
Let as you're going in, you know who else is here.
Yes.
And what they're doing.
Yes.
So you know where to plug in.
Yes.
You're not just coming to duplicate, because you see this a lot with very many public benefit organizations. You've come into a community, somebody else has come into a community, they were not aware you were there, they're not aware of what you've been doing.
Sure.
And you find a duplication of resources, which leads to wastage.
True.
How can this be better coordinated?
Well, as you point out, as you have rightly pointed out, of course, there's that need for a well coordinated structure in terms of all our programs. When I say all, FAWE Kenya plus other stakeholders, to be able to synergize on the resources, the human capacity, on the technical aspect, such that we address, because at the end of the day, we don't have the FAWE child or this other organization child. We have the Kenyan child who is supposed to benefit. So it is very important to have that coordinated kind of mechanism in place, such that we work from a background of supporting each other and synergizing on what we have.
What would the challenge be?
Of course, maybe, the challenge would be in terms of course, we, as different partners, we have different goals and objectives. That being, of course, for us, we'll be talking about quality education for the Kenyan girl and Kenyan boy. Maybe another partner will be talking about the welfare. Maybe the other partner will be talking about this and that. So in terms of harmonizing all this, it could bring in a bit of Okay, a bit of
So there'll be clashes.
a bit of it. But when we have a coordinated mechanism, I believe those issues will be ironed out so that I'm able to know. For example, if you gave an example of Kilifi, if I'm getting to Kilifi, I'm talking about education. These are the intervention. We have these other partners doing also in education. Then we harmonize such that we are able to contribute to a common goal at the end of the day.
So today, you and other partners and Nairobi City County have some celebrations. Tell us about that.
Yes, we have the day. Of course, the national day is on a Sunday, and as one of the organizers and participant of the Day of the African Child, we thought it wise. Of course, there's a coordinating body, a planning committee body, and I happen to be one of the members. I'm not the chairperson, but I'm a member. So we have looking at the dynamics around the partners and the day falling on a Sunday. We thought we have this particular day on this day, 14th. So it is being held at St. John's Catholic Church Primary School in Korogocho, that's Kariobangi. And the focus here, we are talking about accelerating education. The theme of the event is education for all African children in Africa. So that is the event we are marking. But again, of course, I know on Sunday there will be the national, which will be held in Taita Taveta. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everybody's welcome to come to Korogocho today at St. Paul's.
Yes. It's on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Asante sana.
Shukran.
And today, we wish you all the best. Sunday as well, as we all mark the Day of the African Child. All the best to FAWE and all the other partners in what you're doing.
Thank you.
Justus Makhulo is the program officer at FAWE, the Forum for African Women Educationists Kenya chapter. He's been our guest talking about Day of the African Child and what FAWE has been doing in support of making sure that the children in Africa, in Kenya specifically, are getting their rights. Thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.